Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have more UFO stories, folks. I've got another manta ray UFO that was seen over Kentucky, and a USO sighting that was seen in Hawaii with a Reptilian. Both accounts have aspects of MIB and other alien lore, so let's get into it now. Massive translucent manta ray entity seen gliding over Burnside, Kentucky home. Let's get into this story now and read exactly what happened. In the early morning hours of November 22nd, 2014, a Burnside, Kentucky resident stepped out beneath a clear star-filled sky and encountered something extraordinary. What appeared overhead was not a bird, aircraft, or known aerial phenomena, but a gigantic translucent manta ray-shaped entity silently undulating across the night. The description closely mirrors accounts I have documented for more than 15 years involving what I term the flying manta ray phenomena. What makes this report particularly compelling is the size of the entity and the witness's calm, detailed observation under ideal visibility conditions. Let's read on. Burnside, Kentucky, November 22nd, 2014. At approximately 1:20 a.m., the witness received a call from her daughter, who was in the emergency room suffering from a kidney stone. After the stone passed and medication was administered, the daughter was advised not to drive. The witness went to retrieve her and returned home with her safely. After driving the 6 to 7 miles back to her own residence, the witness pulled into her driveway around 3 o'clock a.m. Before heading inside, she paused to admire the unusually clear night sky. The stars were bright and sharply visible. Then she said, a distinct Swiss directly overhead that I imagined she had never heard before, folks. And this all happening after her daughter had been safely returned home after such a stressful ordeal. Maybe this led to her basically having this sighting with this manta ray-shaped thing in the sky, folks. Could it have been maybe an atmospheric beast, perhaps maybe drawn to this woman because of maybe a psychic ordeal that she had just been through with her daughter, or maybe for some other reason. Maybe it was actually a UFO craft. We don't know. But let's read on, folks. Looking up, she observed a massive stingray-shaped form approximately 50 to 100 feet above the ground. The entity was enormous, comparable in size to her 2,500 square foot home. It stretched across the approximate 150-foot space between her house and her neighbors, giving her a clear sense of its breadth. The being, appeared translucent. She could see the stars through its body, yet its outline was unmistakable. It did not flap like a bird. Instead, it moved slowly, pulsating and undulating in a perfectly synchronized motion, almost as if swimming through the air. As it glided overhead, she noticed what appeared to be a downward hanging object from its rear. She could not determine whether it was a tail, appendages, or legs held together. The movement was smooth and deliberate. So it was moving, folks. Not exactly flapping like a bird, more or less stationary like that, but was still moving like a living organism. That we've also observed, basically in these two kinds of stories before, folks, such beings. Maybe there's some sort of bioships, some sort of unknown life forms, perhaps. Basically like atmospheric beasts, or in fact they are. We can only basically just theorize. But let's finish off this article now, folks. Aside from the initial swish that drew her attention, the entity made no sound, no lights, or odors, or electromagnetic sensations were reported. The only illumination was from the stars themselves. The witness felt no sense of threat. Instead, she described a mixture of fear, of awe, and terror. She had the distinct impression that the entity wanted her to see it. She stood transfixed, as if it drifted silently beyond her neighbor's home and out across an adjacent farm field, eventually disappearing into the darkness. Afterward, she was unable to sleep. Even years later, she finds herself scanning the night sky, hoping for another glimpse. She asked whether anyone else had reported such an entity. In fact, folks, several people have reported these sorts of things before. It's something that's been gaining momentum in the UFO community, these, UFO manta-shaped, bioships or cryptids, folks. As I said, they're possibly some sort of beings we don't know about. But let's read on to the next article, folks, because it's also very interesting. Australian explorer claims reptilian USO encounter off Hawaii coast. And like the first account, folks, it's just as mysterious. But this time, there's an MIB aspect to it as well, folks. So let's read on with this reptilian USO encounter. In late 2025, a Queensland woman contacted me after a deeply unsettling experience that began with a brief encounter inside a large office works store. What started as a fleeting moment with a stranger soon evolved into what she described as a forced psychic engagement and an apparent underwater craft occupied by reptilian beings. I responded directly to her inquiry as elements of her account echoed themes reported by other experiencers worldwide. The experiencer stated that she was walking toward the checkout area of a large office works store in Queensland when she noticed a man approaching her. According to her, something about him felt wrong. She could not articulate exactly why. Only after he did not add up, she observed him for slightly longer than social norms would allow. He appeared to sense her scrutiny, nodding politely, said good day, and continued past her. The encounter lasted only seconds, but in those seconds, our witness, the experiencer, felt that there was something off. We can get into more about that a little later, folks, so let's read on. Over the next 2 mornings, while studying in her kitchen, she became aware of the man's face intruding into her thoughts. She describes herself as experienced with benevolent forms of ESP over many years and initially declined to engage with the impression. On the 3rd day, around lunchtime, the psychic presence intensified. She reported a sudden sensation that her life force was being drained. The physical impact was immediate. She felt compelled to lie down. At that point, she described finding herself inside what she interpreted as an underwater craft. She questioned whether it was a submarine or unidentified submersible object. She sensed deep water around the vessel and felt confined and uneasy inside the craft. She claimed to see several Draco or reptilian beings operating controls. Despite her discomfort, she sensed that her presence there was accepted without resistance. Perhaps because she was a psychic herself, folks, or basically had, a hand in it. Maybe this being that she encountered at the store was such a reptilian being and it singled her out for abduction. But let's, as I said, read on. She stated that she asked telepathically, where are we? One of the beings reportedly replied, off the coast of Hawaii. When she asked what they were doing there, she claimed the response, was stocking up with dog meat. Disturbed, she withdrew from the experience. Upon returning to full awareness, she searched online and found references to historical accounts of dog consumption in Hawaiian culture, which was traditionally restricted and considered sacred in certain contexts. While modern Hawaii does not openly practice this, she interpreted the historical material as partial confirmation. She further reported hearing internally, and that is not all they eat, which intensified her concern. She concluded by asking whether similar reports of reptilian beings operating underwater craft, possibly connected to unexplained disappearances, had been documented elsewhere. I responded to her inquiry and acknowledged that aspects of her experience aligned with several long-standing strands of high strangeness reporting. Now remember, I talked about earlier how this had elements of the MIB phenomena. Remember, when this entity walked up to this woman, when she basically felt that there was something off about this man, that, like with other accounts with the MIB, people felt off about them. They act odd, or basically they sense something from them directly after observing them. Sometimes they give the impression that they don't know how to act like humans, fitting into basically, normal society. I mean, one account basically gives the impression that they don't even know how to eat normal food. In this account, this MIB was sitting at a table at a restaurant. He had ordered a steak, and he just looked at it. He was unable to understand that you use your utensils, your knife and fork to cut into the steak and then eat it. He just looked at it, basically, then calmly said thank you and then walked out. So, like these accounts, folks, this reptilian being just seemed off to her. Maybe not basically visually. Maybe she just sensed that it was a disguise or something. Either way, maybe this picked her out to basically be abducted. I can only basically guess, folks. And like with the first account, with the, manta ray-shaped UFO, the experience changed, I would imagine, the experiencer. Now, could it be that basically that the, manta ray-shaped UFO had a, link to basically this account, folks? I mean, both have basically elements of the ocean in it. Here, in the USO account, folks, we have this underwater, submersible or UFO that's peopled by these reptilian beings. And in this other account from Kentucky, we have this flying mantis-shaped UFO. Gives you the impression that basically the ocean plays a part in all of these stories, doesn't it, folks? Either way, very interesting, and hopefully more information will come out. But we're now at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics That Are Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in descriptions of the chat to go subscribe me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure the part of the bell that'll give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdog's Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.